My name is Nora. I'm 57 years old, and for 35 years I thought I knew everything about the man sleeping next to me every night. Walter and I built our life together. From nothing, raised our daughter. Weathered storms, celebrated victories. We were solid. Or so I believed until a stranger's phone call shattered every assumption I'd ever made about my marriage. What I discovered changed not just my past, but forced me to rewrite my entire future. I would love to know where you are watching this from. Please tap that like button if you have ever discovered something that changed your world completely. And subscribe because what happened next at that family gathering will leave you absolutely speechless. Let me take you back to the afternoon when my phone rang and a man's voice asked for Walter. Walter and I have lived in Austin, Texas for over 3 decades now. We met back in 1989 at a small coffee shop on 6th Street. I was 22, fresh out of nursing school, still figuring out who I wanted to be. He was 24, working his first real job in commercial real estate, wearing a tie that didn't quite match his shirt. I remember thinking he looked nervous when he asked if he could share my table. The place was packed, he said, but I knew even then it was an excuse. We dated for a year before he proposed. Nothing fancy, just the two of us on a hiking trail near Enchanted Rock. He didn't have a ring yet, said he wanted to make sure I'd say yes before he spent the money. I laughed and told him I'd have said yes even without the ring. We got married that November in a simple ceremony at my parents' church. My mother cried. His father gave a toast about building a strong foundation. Everyone said we were meant for each other. Our daughter Stephanie came along 3 years later. She's 32 now, married to a good man named Brandon, mother to our two grandchildren Connor and Lily. They live up in Dallas, about 3 hours north. Stephanie calls me every Sunday without fail, tells me about the kids' soccer games and school projects. She has Walter's determination, and I'd always thought his honesty. Walter did well for himself in real estate, not rich but comfortable. We bought a 2-story house with a backyard big enough for a garden and 2 golden retrievers. I worked as a nurse at the local hospital until my knees started giving me trouble 5 years ago. Early retirement, they called it. I called it finally having time to tend my roses and read all those books I'd been collecting. We had our routines. Walter played golf every Saturday morning with his brother Frank. I worked in the garden, my hands in the soil, watching butterflies visit my lavender. Sunday mornings meant church, then brunch at the same diner we'd been going to for 20 years. Tuesday nights were movie nights, just the two of us on the couch with popcorn and whatever film caught our attention. Summers meant our annual road trip to Big Bend National Park, where we'd camp under stars so bright they looked fake. Every morning, Walter brought me coffee in bed. Black 2 sugars, exactly how I liked it. He'd kiss my forehead and tell me about his day ahead. Every anniversary he remembered. Every birthday he made a fuss. When my mother passed away 8 years ago, he held me through the nights I couldn't stop crying. When his business partner cheated him out of a major deal, I was the one who reminded him that integrity mattered more than money. We were the couple people pointed to at parties. 35 years and still holding hands, they'd say. Still finishing each other's sentences. Still laughing at inside jokes nobody else understood. I believed it all. Every word, every gesture, every year. It was a Thursday afternoon in April when everything changed. The kind of Texas spring day where the heat hasn't quite arrived yet and the air smells like cedar and wildflowers. Walter had driven to San Antonio for a meeting with a potential client. He'd be back by dinner, he'd said, kissing me goodbye that morning. I was in the kitchen washing lunch dishes and listening to the radio when the house phone rang. We still kept a landline, one of those old habits neither of us felt like breaking. I dried my hands on a towel and picked up. A man's voice, young, uncertain. Hello, is this the Thompson residence? May I speak with Walter Thompson? He's not home right now, I said, already mentally sorting through who this might be. Client maybe. Golf buddy. Can I take a message? There was a pause, long enough that I almost thought the connection had dropped. Then, my name is Caleb. Caleb Morrison. I need to speak with Walter about something personal. Something from a long time ago. His voice carried weight, the kind that comes with difficult news. My stomach tightened without knowing why. Is something wrong? I asked. Another pause. It's about my mother, Helen Morrison. She knew Walter back in 1989. 1989. The year Walter and I met. The year we fell in love. The year he proposed. My hand gripped the phone tighter. I see. What is this regarding? The young man Caleb took a breath I could hear through the line. Look, I don't want to cause trouble, but I need to know the truth. My mother passed away 6 months ago, and before she died, she told me something. She told me Walter Thompson is my biological father. The kitchen seemed to tilt. I reached for the counter, steadying myself. The radio was still playing some cheerful song about summer love. It felt obscene. I see. I heard myself say, voice surprisingly calm. Can you give me your number? I'll have Walter call you back. He recited the digits. I wrote them down on the notepad we kept by the phone, my handwriting shaky, numbers barely legible. When he finished, I read them back to confirm some autopilot part of my brain still functioning, while the rest of me was screaming. I'm 34 years old. Caleb added, his voice quieter now. I just want to know if it's true. That's all. I understand, I said, though I understood nothing. Walter will call you. After I hung up, I stood in the kitchen for a long time. The phone was still in my hand. The radio kept playing. Outside, the dogs were barking at a squirrel. Everything was exactly the same, except nothing would ever be the same again. 34 years old, born in 1990, which meant conceived in late 1989. Right around the time Walter and I were planning our wedding. Right around the time he was traveling to Houston for work, gone for weeks at a time. Right around the time I was buried in nursing school finals. Trusting him completely, never questioning where he was or who he was with. I sat down at the kitchen table and tried to remember those months. Walter had been stressed, I recalled. Said the Houston project was demanding lots of late nights, difficult clients. He'd come home tired, distant sometimes. I chalked it up to work pressure. We were young, building our careers, planning a future. Of course he was stressed. Had there been other signs? Moments I'd ignored because I trusted him so completely. I tried to pull up memories, but they were hazy, filtered through 3.5 decades of accumulated life. All I could see clearly was the present moment, this kitchen, this phone number on this notepad, this name. Caleb Morrison, Helen Morrison. When Walter came home that evening, he found me in the living room, sitting in the dim light of early dusk. I hadn't turned on any lamps, hadn't started dinner, hadn't done anything but sit and think. Hey, you okay? He asked, setting down his briefcase. I tried calling, but you didn't pick up. I looked at him, really looked at him. The man I'd loved for 35 years. Grey at the temples, now lines around his eyes from too much squinting in the sun. Still handsome, still familiar, still a stranger. I'm fine, I said. How was San Antonio? He launched into a story about the meeting, the client, traffic on I-35. I nodded in the right places, made appropriate sounds. Inside, I was already planning, already thinking, already deciding that I wouldn't confront him. Not yet. Not like this. Not in the privacy of our living room where he could explain it away, minimize it, convince me I was overreacting. No. When the truth came out, it would be in the light, in front of everyone. 2 days later, I called the number Caleb had given me. It rang 4 times before he answered. This is Caleb. Caleb, this is Nora Thompson, Walter's wife. We spoke on Thursday. Silence. Then carefully, Mrs. Thompson, I wasn't sure I'd hear from you. I need to understand what's happening before I tell Walter about your call. I said, can we meet in person? He agreed immediately. We set a time for the following afternoon at a coffee shop in downtown Austin, far enough from our neighborhood that I wouldn't run into anyone I knew. I told Walter I was meeting an old nursing school friend. He barely looked up from his newspaper. I arrived 15 minutes early, ordered tea I didn't drink, and watched the door. When Caleb walked in, I knew him instantly. Not because I'd seen a photo, not because he'd described himself, but because when he scanned the room and our eyes met, I saw Walter looking back at me. He was tall, around 6 feet, with dark brown hair and eyes that shifted between grey and blue, depending on the light. The shape of his jaw, the way his eyebrows drew together when he concentrated, even the way he walked, it was all painfully, unmistakably familiar. "Mrs. Thompson," he said, approaching the table. "Call me Nora. Please sit down." He sat, hands clasped on the table, looking like he wanted to be anywhere else. I didn't blame him. This couldn't be easy for him either. "Tell me about your mother," I said. He took a breath. Her name was Helen Morrison. She worked as a paralegal in Houston for over 30 years. She was strong, independent, raised me on her own. She never married, never even dated much, as far as I knew. She always told me my father wasn't in the picture, that he'd left before I was born. But that wasn't true. Not exactly. Caleb pulled out his phone, scrolled through something, then turned it toward me. "She left me a letter. I found it after she died." I read the words on the screen, Helen's final confession to her son. She'd met Walter Thompson in August of 1989. He was in Houston for a construction project, staying at a hotel near her office. They met at a bar after work, started talking, kept talking. It lasted 2 weeks, she wrote. Just 2 weeks of feeling young and reckless. Then Walter went back to Austin, back to his fiancée, back to his real life. Helen found out she was pregnant in October. By then, Walter was engaged to be married. She made a choice. She wouldn't tell him, wouldn't ruin his life, wouldn't force herself into a situation where she wasn't wanted. She'd have the baby, raise him herself, build a life that didn't depend on a man who'd already chosen someone else. "She died of a stroke," Caleb said quietly. "Last October. She was only 60. The letter was with her will in a safety deposit box. I didn't know any of this until after she was gone." "I'm sorry," I said, and meant it. Whatever else Helen Morrison had been, whatever choices she'd made, she'd raised this young man alone. That couldn't have been easy. She left an address for Walter, an old one from 1990. I did some searching, found him on social media, saw your family photos. He looked down. "I saw Stephanie, your daughter, my half-sister, I guess." Half-sister. The words landed heavy. "Did you get a DNA test?" I asked. He nodded. "I know this sounds bad, but I needed to be sure before I reached out. A friend of mine works security at a business conference Walter attended last month. He managed to get a coffee cup Walter had used. I sent it to a lab with a sample of my own DNA." He pulled up another image on his phone. The results were clear. 99.9% probability of paternity. I stared at the numbers until they blurred. There it was. Scientific proof of what I'd already known the moment I saw Caleb's face. Walter had a son who'd grown up without knowing his father. A son Walter himself didn't know existed. "What do you want from me?" I asked. "I want him to know," Caleb said simply. "I don't need money. I don't need a relationship if he doesn't want one. But my mother spent 34 years keeping this secret, and I think it's time for the truth. I think I deserve that much." I looked at this young man, this accidental piece of my husband's past, and felt something shift inside me. Anger, yes. Betrayal, absolutely. But also something else. A strange kind of clarity. "There's a family gathering at the end of June," I heard myself say. "Walter's father's birthday. The whole family will be there. Both sides, about 25 people." Caleb's eyes widened. "You want me to come to that?" "I want the truth to come out in the light," I said, "not hidden in phone calls and private conversations. If Walter has a son, everyone should know, especially Walter. That's going to hurt a lot of people." "The truth usually does," I said, "but I'm tired of being the only one who knows. If I'm going to carry this, we all are." We talked for another hour. He told me about his life growing up in Houston, studying mechanical engineering at UT Austin. his job at an energy company. He showed me pictures of his mother, a woman with kind eyes and a careful smile. In one photo, she stood next to a younger Walter, both of them laughing at something outside the frame. Walter wore a shirt I recognized, one that hung in the back of our closet for years, until I finally donated it. That night, lying next to Walter in our bed, I watched him sleep. He looked peaceful, innocent even, snoring softly, one arm thrown over his head. In that way, he'd slept for as long as I'd known him. Part of me wanted to shake him awake, demand answers, scream at him for the lie our marriage had been built on. But I didn't. Instead, I lay there, planning, thinking, preparing for the moment when everything would finally, irrevocably change. Over the next 2 months, I spoke with Caleb regularly. Phone calls, coffee meetings, long conversations, where he told me about Helen, about growing up wondering who his father was, about the strange relief of finally knowing, even if the knowing came too late. I found myself liking him. He was thoughtful, careful with his words, clearly uncomfortable with the chaos his existence had caused. He didn't want to hurt anyone, he just wanted acknowledgement, recognition, the simple truth of his own story. My girlfriend thinks I should just let it go, he told me during one of our meetings. She says knowing is enough, that I don't need to blow up your family. What do you think? I asked. He was quiet for a long moment. I think my mom spent 34 years protecting Walter's secret. I think she worked 2 jobs so I could go to college, never complained, never asked for help. And I think she deserved better than to die with this truth buried. So yeah, I want it known. Not for revenge, not to cause pain, just for honesty. I understood that more than he knew. At home, I played the perfect wife, made Walter's favorite meals, laughed at his jokes, asked about his day. Every morning when he brought me coffee, I smiled and thanked him. Every night when he kissed me goodnight, I kissed him back. And every moment of every day, I thought about June 28th, the day everything would end. Or maybe the day everything would finally be honest. June 28th was George's 82nd birthday. Walter's father, a retired postal worker who still walked 2 miles every morning and could beat anyone at dominoes. We'd been celebrating his birthday at his house for as long as I could remember. Big family barbecues, kids running around the yard, adults clustering in groups, talking about sports and politics, and whose kid was doing what. This year would be different. The invitation had gone out in May like always. George and Barbara's house, 2 o'clock, bring a side dish. Walter had been excited, talking about how he'd grill his famous ribeyes, how Connor and Lily would love seeing their great-grandfather. He'd even bought a new shirt for the occasion, a blue button-down that matched his eyes. I'd smiled and nodded, and agreed with everything he said, while my phone buzzed with messages from Caleb. Are you sure about this? We can do it another way. I don't want to ruin your family. But he didn't understand. The family was already ruined. It had been ruined 35 years ago in a Houston hotel room. All I was doing was making the ruin visible. The night before the party, I couldn't sleep. Walter was snoring beside me, dead to the world, after a long day of golf with Frank. I lay there watching shadows move across the ceiling, thinking about how many nights I'd spent in this bed, in this room, believing I knew the man next to me. I thought about all the times he'd held me, told me he loved me, promised me forever. Were any of those moments real? Or had they all been built on the foundation of that Houston lie? At 3 in the morning, I got up, went downstairs in my robe and made tea. I didn't drink. The dogs followed me, settling at my feet in the kitchen. Outside, the world was dark and quiet. Inside, my thoughts were chaos. I thought about Stephanie, about how this would affect her. Finding out her father had another child, one he'd never known about, one who'd existed her whole life in parallel to hers. She'd be devastated, angry, confused. All the things I was feeling, she'd feel too. I thought about George and Barbara, about celebrating their son's betrayal on what should be a happy day, about the shame Walter would feel in front of his father, the disappointment in George's eyes. I thought about Frank and Denise and Kyle, Walter's siblings, about how they'd look at their brother differently after today, about how family dinners would never be the same, how there'd always be this weight in the room, this knowledge that couldn't be unknown. And I thought about Caleb, about a young man who'd done nothing wrong except exist, who was about to walk into a room full of strangers and claim his place in a family that didn't know he was coming. But then I remembered the phone call, the shock, the immediate gut-wrenching knowledge that my entire marriage might be a lie. And I remembered that I shouldn't have to carry that alone, that Walter's choices shouldn't be my secret to keep. By the time the sun came up, I was resolved. Today would hurt. Today would change everything. But today would also be honest. Walter found me in the kitchen at 6, still in my robe, watching dawn break through the window. "You're up early," he said, kissing the top of my head, excited for Dad's party. "Something like that," I said. We got ready in comfortable silence, the kind that comes from decades of shared mornings. Walter hummed in the shower. I picked out a dress, something simple and strong, the kind of armor that looked like regular clothes. In the mirror, I barely recognized myself. 57 years old, about to blow up my life. I looked tired. We arrived at George and Barbara's house at 10 to help set up. The place was already bustling, Barbara in the kitchen making her famous potato salad, George directing the placement of tables in the backyard. Kyle and his wife Patricia had arrived early too, their daughter helping string lights across the patio. "There's my favorite daughter-in-law," George said, pulling me into a hug. He smelled like aftershave and peppermint, the same as always. "How's my girl?" "Hanging in there," I said. And it was perhaps the truest thing I'd said in months. People started arriving around 1. Frank and Laura with their 2 adult children. Denise and Raymond with their 3 kids and 2 grandchildren. Stephanie showed up with Brandon, Connor, and Lily, the kids immediately running to find George, who always had candy in his pockets. "Hey, Mom," Stephanie said, hugging me tight. "You look stressed. Everything okay?" "Just a long week," I lied. "How was the drive?" She launched into a story about traffic and Connor spilling juice in the backseat, normal family chaos, the kind that felt precious because I knew it was about to be shattered. I listened and smiled and felt like a fraud. By 3 o'clock, everyone was there. 26 people total, spread across the backyard, plates loaded with food, voices loud and happy. Walter stood by the grill, spatula in hand, holding court with his brothers about the best way to cook a steak. Stephanie helped Barbara bring out the birthday cake. Kids chased each other around the yard. It was perfect. A perfect family moment. My phone buzzed. "Caleb, I'm outside, parked down the street. Still not sure about this." I typed back quickly. "Give me 15 minutes." My hands were shaking. I put the phone in my pocket and stood up, walked over to the dessert table and picked up a glass, tapped it with a spoon until the chatter died down and everyone turned to look at me. "Sorry to interrupt," I said, voice steadier than I felt. "I just wanted to say a few words before we do the cake." "Speech time," Kyle called out, grinning. I didn't smile back. "Thank you all for coming today. George, happy birthday. We love you so much." George raised his beer in salute, Barbara beaming beside him. "Today is about family," I continued. "About truth, about facing the past." A few confused looks. Walter was watching me now, eyebrows drawn together, sensing something off. "There's someone I want you all to meet. Someone who is part of this family whether we knew it or not." Now everyone was paying attention. Stephanie's smile faded. Frank put down his plate. I pulled out my phone and typed the message I'd been composing in my head all day. "Come in now. The side gate is unlocked." "Nora, what's going on?" Walter said, setting down the spatula, starting toward me. "Just wait," I said. 2 minutes felt like hours. The backyard had gone quiet. Everyone watching me, watching the side gate, waiting. Then it opened, and Caleb walked through. He was wearing khakis and a button-down shirt, looking terrified and determined at once. He stopped a few feet into the yard, eyes finding mine across the space. I nodded. I said, my voice carrying across the sudden silence. This is Caleb Morrison. He's 34 years old. His mother was Helen Morrison. She passed away last October. Before she died, she told Caleb something she'd kept secret for his entire life. I turned to Walter. He was staring at Caleb, face pale, something like recognition flickering in his eyes, even though he couldn't possibly know who this was. Walter, I said loud enough for everyone to hear. Caleb's mother told him that you are his father. The world seemed to stop. The silence that followed was total. No one moved. No one breathed. Even the kids had gone still, sensing the adults' shock. Walter's face drained of color. He looked from me to Caleb and back again, mouth opening and closing without sound. What? I don't understand what you're saying. I reached into my bag and pulled out the folder I had prepared. Walked over to Stephanie and handed it to her. DNA test results. 99.9% probability that Walter is Caleb's biological father. Stephanie's hands shook as she opened the folder. Her eyes scanned the page, then widened. She looked up at her father with an expression I'd never seen before, something between betrayal and disbelief. Dad, I don't know this person, Walter said, his voice rising. Nora, what is this? Some kind of joke? Caleb stepped forward. His voice was quiet but steady. My mother's name was Helen Morrison. She worked as a paralegal in Houston. You met her in August of 1989, when you were there for a construction project. You had a relationship that lasted 2 weeks. Walter went very still. She found out she was pregnant in October. You were engaged to Nora by then. My mother chose not to tell you. She raised me alone. She died 6 months ago and left me a letter explaining everything. Let me see that DNA test, Frank said, taking the folder from Stephanie. He read it, then looked at Walter with something close to disgust. It's real, man. The numbers don't lie. George had stood up, leaning heavily on his cane. Walter, is this true? All eyes turned to Walter. He was still staring at Caleb, and I watched the moment recognition truly hit. The resemblance was undeniable once you looked for it. The same eyes, the same jawline, the same way of standing with weight shifted slightly to one side. I remember Helen, Walter said finally, voice barely above a whisper. But I didn't know. I swear to God I didn't know about him. But you knew about her, I said, my voice cold and clear. You knew you were with her while you were engaged to me. You knew you cheated and you never said a word. 35 years, Walter. 35 years of marriage and you never told me. Stephanie was crying now, Brandon's arm around her shoulders. Connor and Lily had run to their mother, confused and scared by the adult's distress. Denise stood with her hand over her mouth. Kyle had his arms crossed, shaking his head. Barbara spoke up, her voice thick with tears. Walter, how could you? It was one mistake, Walter said desperately. One time I was scared about getting married. I was young and stupid. It meant nothing. Caleb's voice cut through. It meant nothing. It created me. It created a human being. A son who grew up without a father because you were too much of a coward to face what you'd done. I didn't know, Walter repeated. If I'd known, I would have tried to do something. Would you? I asked. Would you really? You were about to marry me. Would you have told me the truth and risked losing me, or would you have paid Helen to disappear? Walter looked at me with desperation. Nora, please. Don't, I said. Don't ask me for understanding. Don't ask me for forgiveness. Not here, not now. George moved closer to Caleb, studying his face. After a long moment, he said, You have the Thompson eyes. Same as Walter, same as Stephanie. He turned to his son. I raised you to be better than this. Those words, quiet and disappointed, seemed to hit Walter harder than anything else. He sank into a chair, head in his hands. Frank walked over to Caleb, extended his hand. I'm Frank, Walter's brother. This is a hell of a way to meet family, but welcome, I guess. Caleb shook his hand, looking overwhelmed. Thank you. Stephanie approached next, wiping tears from her face. She looked at Caleb for a long moment, then said, I'm Stephanie. I guess I'm your half-sister. I didn't come here to cause pain. Caleb said to the group. I just wanted to know who my father was. My mother spent my whole life keeping this secret to protect him. I thought it was time for the truth. The truth? Denise echoed. God, Walter, all these years. Patricia spoke up, her voice sharp. Did you even think about what this would do to Nora, making her live a lie? I didn't know it was a lie, Walter said miserably. I thought the past was the past. I thought what happened in Houston stayed in Houston. Except it didn't, I said. It created Caleb. It created consequences you never had to face because Helen protected you. She did all the hard work, raised your son alone, worked 2 jobs so he could go to college. And you got to play happy family man like nothing ever happened. Laura had been quiet, but now she said gently, Nora, why didn't you tell Walter privately? Why like this? Because I'm tired of protecting him. I said simply, because if I told him alone, he'd minimize it, explain it away, make me feel like I was overreacting. Because everyone here loves Walter, respects him, thinks he's a good man, and I wanted you all to see who he really is. The afternoon dissolved into uncomfortable conversations. Some people left early, unable to handle the tension. Others stayed drawn by the terrible gravity of the situation. Stephanie spent a long time talking to Caleb, asking him about his life, his mother, what he wanted from all this. George pulled me aside at one point. I'm sorry, Nora. I'm so damn sorry. It's not your fault, I said. Still, he said, you deserved better. You've always deserved better. Barbara hugged me tight, whispering, whatever you decide to do, we support you. As the sun started to set, most people had gone. Just family remained. Walter sat alone by the now cold grill. Caleb was talking with Kyle and Patricia. Stephanie was helping Barbara clean up, both of them moving in that automatic way women do when they need something to occupy their hands. I found myself standing next to Frank. He looked at me and said, You okay? I don't know what I am, I admitted. That took guts. What you did today. Or stupidity. No, he said firmly. Courage. Walter needed to face this. We all did. As twilight deepened, Caleb approached me. I should go. Thank you for today. I know it cost you. You deserve the truth, I said. Your mother deserved recognition. Will you be okay? I looked over at Walter, still sitting alone, the weight of 35 years finally visible on his shoulders. Eventually, I said. Are you? He smiled sadly. Eventually. After Caleb left, after the last of the family had gone, with awkward hugs and promises to call, it was just Walter and me in the driveway. The house behind us was dark. The street was quiet. Nora, he started. Don't, I said. I can't do this now. Where are you going to go? Stephanie's. For tonight at least. Please don't leave me. I looked at him, this man I'd loved for 35 years, and felt nothing but exhaustion. You left me 35 years ago, Walter. I just didn't know it until now. I got in my car and drove away. In the rearview mirror, I saw him standing in the driveway watching me go. I stayed with Stephanie for 3 days. She and Brandon gave me their guest room and space to think. The kids knew something was wrong with Grandma and Grandpa, but didn't press. Stephanie didn't push me to talk, just brought me coffee in the mornings and sat with me in the evenings. On the 4th day, I rented a small apartment in downtown Austin. 1-bedroom, 10th floor, with a view of the city I'd lived in for decades, but never really seen from this angle. It was expensive, more than I needed, but it felt like a fresh start. Walter called 17 times the first week. I answered on the 18th call. Nora, please, let me explain. What's left to explain? I was young, I was scared, I made a mistake. You made a choice, I corrected. And then you made another choice every day for 35 years. You chose to never tell me, because it was over, because it didn't matter. It mattered to Helen. It mattered to Caleb. It matters to me. Silence on the line. Then quietly. What do you want me to do? I want you to tell me the truth. All of it. No more secrets, no more explanations. Just the truth. So he did. Over the phone, over dinner a week later, over months of conversations. The truth came out in pieces. He'd been terrified of marriage, he said. Terrified of commitment, of growing up, of becoming his father. The Houston project had felt like an escape, and Helen had been kind, easy to talk to, safe, because she wasn't part of his real life. He'd ended it when he came back to Austin. Cut contact completely. Thrown himself into wedding planning, into being the man he thought I deserved. He'd convinced himself it meant nothing, that it was just cold feet, just a moment of weakness. Did you love her? I asked. No, he said, without hesitation. I barely knew her. Did you think about her after? He was quiet. Sometimes. Not often. I told myself it was better forgotten. Convenient, I said. I started seeing Caleb regularly. Coffee once a week, sometimes lunch. Stephanie joined us often. It was strange watching them together, seeing the sibling resemblance, the way they both fidgeted when nervous, both laughed at the same odd moments. It's weird, Stephanie said one afternoon, just the two of us. I always wanted a sibling closer to my age. And here he was all along. Are you angry? I asked. At Dad furious. At Caleb numb. None of this is his fault. She paused. Are you going to divorce Dad? I don't know, I said honestly. Some days I think yes, absolutely. How could I not? Other days I remember 35 years of mostly good marriage. Mostly honest marriage. Mostly isn't the same as completely. No, I agreed. It's not. 3 months after the birthday party, I met Walter at our house. He'd been living there alone, the dogs his only company. The place looked the same, but felt different, like a museum of a life that used to exist. I've been thinking, I said sitting across from him at our kitchen table, about what I want, what I need. He waited, hands folded in front of him. I need you to have a relationship with Caleb, a real one. Be his father even though you missed 34 years. He deserves that. Okay? I need you to go to therapy. Not couples therapy, not yet. Just you dealing with whatever made you think keeping secrets was acceptable. Okay? And I need time. I don't know if I can forgive this. I don't know if I want to. But I need to figure that out without pressure. Take all the time you need, he said. I'll wait. Don't wait, I said. Live your life. Make things right with Caleb. Work on yourself. And maybe, eventually we'll see. I learned things about myself in that apartment. I learned I liked living alone, that silence could be peaceful instead of lonely. I took up painting, something I'd always wanted to try, but never had time for. I joined a book club. I had lunch with old friends I'd lost touch with over the years. Barbara called me every Sunday. Just checking in, she'd say. And we'd talk for an hour about nothing and everything. George sent cards. Denise and Laura invited me to things, made sure I knew I was still family regardless of what happened with Walter. 6 months in, Caleb told me Walter had taken him to a Rangers game. They'd sat in the stands, eating hot dogs, talking about baseball and work, and nothing too heavy. It was a start. He's trying, Caleb said. It's awkward, but he's trying. Good, I said. Do you think you'll get back together? I don't know, I said. Does it matter to you? He thought about it. I want you to be happy, whether that's with him or without him. Stephanie said something similar. I love Dad, but I love you more. You get to choose what's best for you. It's been a year now since that birthday party. A year since I stood in George's backyard and changed everything. Some days it feels like a lifetime ago. Other days, it feels like yesterday. Walter and I are talking, really talking, not just surface conversations about the weather or what's on TV. We're in couples therapy now, working through decades of assumptions and buried truths. It's hard. Some sessions I leave feeling hopeful, others I leave wondering why I'm bothering. But I'm not ready to give up. Not yet. Not because I owe him anything, but because I owe myself the chance to decide consciously, not react impulsively. To choose my future with eyes wide open. Caleb has become part of the family. Awkwardly at first, but increasingly natural. He came to Thanksgiving. Connor and Lily call him Uncle Caleb. Stephanie and he text each other terrible memes. It's weird and complicated and somehow working. Walter is different now, humbler, more aware. He knows he's on probation, that trust isn't given, it's earned, and he has 35 years of earning to do. Sometimes I see the old Walter, the one who brought me coffee and made me laugh. Other times I see a stranger. I don't know if we'll make it. I don't know if I want us to. But I know this, I'm not the same woman I was a year ago. I'm stronger, more honest with myself, less willing to accept comfortable lies. I still live in my apartment, still paint on Tuesday nights and have lunch with the book club on Thursdays. Still talk to Caleb every week and watch my grandchildren on weekends. I'm building a life that's mine, not ours, not defined by being Walter's wife. Maybe eventually Walter will be part of that life again. Maybe not. Either way, I'll be okay. The truth did set me free. It hurt like hell first. It destroyed illusions I'd clung to for decades. It forced me to see that the foundation I'd built my life on had cracks I'd never noticed. But now I'm building something new, something solid, something honest. And whether that includes Walter or not, it includes me. Fully, completely, unapologetically me. Would I do it again? Would I expose the secret at that family gathering, causing pain to so many people I love? Yes, without hesitation, because the alternative was continuing to live a lie. And I'd done that for long enough. Some of you watching might think I was cruel, that I should have handled it privately, spared the family the embarrassment. Maybe you're right, but I needed witnesses. I needed the truth to be undeniable, public, impossible to minimize or explain away. Others might think I should have left Walter immediately, that staying in therapy with him is weakness. Maybe that's true too. But this is my choice to make, my timeline to follow. The question I've learned to ask isn't whether Walter deserves forgiveness. It's whether I deserve honesty, whether I deserve a partner who sees me, really sees me, and chooses transparency over comfort. Whether I deserve to live in the light instead of the shadow of someone else's secrets. I don't have all the answers yet, but I'm asking better questions. And that, I think, is progress. I want to hear from you. Have you ever discovered a secret that changed everything you thought you knew? How did you handle it? Did you choose to stay or walk away? Leave your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one, and your stories help me feel less alone in this. If the story resonated with you, please hit that like button. It truly helps. Subscribe to this channel if you want to hear more stories about real life, real struggles, real people finding their way through impossible situations. Share this video with someone who might need to hear it. Someone who's wrestling with truth and lies and difficult choices. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here, for witnessing this journey. Whatever you're facing in your own life, I hope you find the courage to choose truth over comfort, even when it costs you everything. Until next time, take care of yourselves. You deserve honesty. You deserve light. You deserve freedom.